What if the spark that lit modern thinking wasn't a verdict, but a method? Socrates didn't write a single book. Yet his questions circled the globe like a stubborn wind that never settles. He didn't claim a final answer. He forced you to test your own. And in that stubborn insistence, he did something dangerous and almost secret. He made thinking into a practice you could learn, refine, and pass on. Athens was a city of voices, where a single idea could topple a man from power or elevate him to legend. In that swirl, Socrates chose to stand not with a doctrine, but with a stance. Curiosity as a discipline, humility as a weapon, doubt as a compass. He wandered the streets with a stubborn, almost friendly itch to poke at certainty. He asked people what they meant when they said they knew something, and then he pressed a little further and a little further again, until belief revealed its edges. The traditional legend is simple. A gadfly buzzing in the ear of Athens, annoying the powerful and the proud. But the deeper secret isn't rudeness or bravado. It's the technique behind the irritant, the elenchus. The cross-examination that turns arguments inside out and leaves us staring at our own scaffolding. When Socrates challenged a politician, a poet, a carpenter, he didn't just win an argument. He invited them to witness the fragility of their own certainty. The power wasn't in victory. It was an awakening that a lifetime of questions could endure long after the questions themselves faded from the lips of the man who first asked them. He didn't claim to possess a perfect map of virtue or truth. He claimed a method to test them. The method is easy to imitate and devastating to resist. Ask, listen, examine, reformulate, repeat. It's a practice of humbling conversations, where the goal isn't to crush the other's ego, but to dismantle one's own illusions. Virtue, he suggests, is not a glittering property you own. It is a kind of knowledge, fragile, provisional, something you're always in the process of understanding better. The famous line the oracle allegedly whispered about him, "No one is wiser than Socrates, isn't a boast about having answers." It's a confession about constraint. The wise man knows the limits of certainty. The fool, in contrast, clings to certainty as if it were a weapon and not a map. Socrates chooses the map. He does not promise safe harbor. He promises movement through storms of assumptions. And in that movement, his influence grows not because he teaches conclusions, but because he teaches the patient art of inquiry. Consider the image of a midwife, not of a sage. He claims to help others give birth to ideas, not to deliver a factory full of ready-made beliefs. The dialogue becomes a chamber where stubborn assumptions are invited to breathe, then rearranged or released. The secret isn't that he knew more than others. It's that he refused to pretend to know less than others. He asked for the courage to hold a question long enough for its hidden possibilities to surface. In a republic of ideas, Socrates didn't write treatises. He planted questions in the soil of everyday life. He started with ordinary terms: justice, courage, piety, and pressed them toward their edges. What is justice, if not the thing that everyone wants in order to be safe? It sometimes costs more when it's examined closely. What is courage, if not fear's willingness to stand its ground for something that matters? These aren't mere definitions. They're living experiments you conduct with friends, strangers, yourself. The touchstone moment that seems to stand outside time is his turn toward virtue as knowledge. If you know the good, you'll do the good. The catch is cruel and human. Knowledge alone isn't enough if the will isn't aligned. Socrates doesn't pretend to offer a cheat code for living well. He offers a practice, a daily examination of motives, a willingness to reconsider, a courage to abandon a cherished belief if the burden of proof shifts. It's not soft. It's rigorous in the oldest sense to cut away superstition so the truth can breathe. This is where the secret truly reveals itself. Philosophy is not a gallery of polished doctrines, but a workshop where one's character is hammered into sharper edges. The questions aren't trivia, they are tools for shaping life. The method becomes a discipline of attention, a training ground for conscience, a ritual of listening. When you hear a claim about right and wrong, you're not allowed to nod and move on. You must test it on your own moral skin. If it survives, it travels with you. If it dissolves, you learn to trust the process of inquiry more than the before you believed. And then comes a twist that reshapes the line between teacher and student. Socrates never claimed to possess a final theory of virtue. He made the act of questioning the living proof that philosophy mattered. The weight of his legacy rests not on a collection of answers, but on a lasting habit. To keep the mind in motion, to keep the soul curious. To keep asking what we call the good until good stops being a label and becomes a lived posture. The unexamined life is a quiet life, safe. The examined life is a restless life, dangerous, honest, and finally fertile. His approach also unsettled Athens' powers. To his accusers, he was a corrupter of youth, a spark that might ignite rebellion disguised as dialogue. But the deeper danger, perhaps, was not rebellion, but the quiet capitulation of the spirit. To confuse certainty with wisdom. To mistake agreement for truth. Socrates pulled the thread on that knot until it began to unravel. The city faced him, tried him, and in the end, as the stories tell, pressed him to silence through death. Yet even in the marketplace of his execution, his question remained louder than any verdict. Are you prepared to live for what you believe? Or will you merely claim you believe it when the crowd approves? The true secret of Socrates, then, isn't in any single claim about virtue. It's in a practice you can borrow today. Treat your convictions as hypotheses you're willing to test. Invite others to test with you. And measure your life by the quality of your questions, not the swagger of your answers. The method multiplies thinking. It doesn't shrink it to one doctrine or another. It invites a humility that resists easy certainty while refusing to surrender the hunger for guidance. It makes philosophy a daily labor, a craft of living well rather than a trophy of intellect. In that sense, Socrates' secret is not a secret at all, but a simple invitation. Keep your mind open, but not so wide that your beliefs fall through. Examine what you claim to know as if you're carrying a light through a dim room, knowing the shadows will resist, yet trusting that brightness will show you what matters. The payoff isn't a final answer that shuts the door. It's a durable posture for facing a world of moral hazard, ambiguity, and change. And if you're listening as an adult who has weathered years of debates, disagreements, and careers built on assumptions, you know the value of such a posture. It isn't a retreat from conviction. It's a disciplined way to keep conviction honest. Socrates teaches that the real test of wisdom is not the force of certainty, but the stamina of inquiry. How long you can stay with a question before you move to the next. How true you can stay to your own sense of being corrected. How brave you are to admit you may be wrong. So what reshapes philosophy in his wake isn't a single questionable claim about virtue. It's a reverberating habit. To turn every moment into a moment of examination. To treat disagreement as a doorway rather than a barrier. To let curiosity do the heavy lifting of moral life. That is the quiet revolution Socrates secured with nothing more than questions, humility, and a stubborn kind of courage. If you take that seriously, you'll notice the world changes not when you finally decide you know everything, but when you decide to know yourself better. The practice of asking, listening, rethinking, and reshaping isn't an academic ritual. It's a way of living that refuses to leave human potential inert. The secret, finally, is that philosophy isn't a treasure chest of answers, but a forge for character. As you move back into your day, consider this. What questions would you carry into your next conversation, your next decision, your next moment of doubt? What belief could you test that would reveal more of who you want to become? If Socrates could walk the agora of Athens with nothing but a question, perhaps the modern world can learn to walk its own crowded street with similar courage. The method remains, and so does the invitation. Stay awake, stay curious, and let the hardness of truth temper your life into something more livable. The secret of Socrates is a practice you can borrow, a method you can live by. A provocative reminder that thinking is not a stage show, but a daily discipline. Your turn to question, to listen, to reconsider, to love the challenge.